Good morning. Good morning. Bienvenidos a todos. Welcome to all. Thank you for being here. There's so much wonderful conversation. There's so much connection, so much life together. It is a beautiful thing. We're moving from Advent into Christmas. We've been waiting and watching and hoping and praying and lamenting, getting ready to celebrate. In Article 3 of the Augsburg Confession, we hear, our churches also teach that the Word, that is the Son of God, took upon himself human nature in the womb of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Therefore he has two natures, one divine and the other human. They are united in one person and cannot be separated. The Lutheran Confessions proclaim Jesus Christ. The Lutheran Confessions point us to God's Holy Scripture. Jesus does not fit in the Lutheran Confessions. Jesus does not fit in the letters and pages of our Bibles, because Jesus is God's living Word among us, with flesh, with sweat, with blood, with human presence. Jesus is truly human and truly divine. That is what we celebrate in Christmas. We celebrate a God who enters our world. We celebrate a God who comes to us in ways that we do not always understand, but who comes to us as we are, as humans, with emotion, with life, with death. And he shares that life and death with us. And we also recognize that Jesus was born to this earth as truly human and divine, living with a hyphenated identity, human and divine. Jesus, therefore, is mestizo, as the immigrant par excellence, in a world in which he perfectly fits and a world in which he does not fit, both and at the same time. I am Paul Bailey. I am a pastor of Iglesia Luterana San Lucas in Eagle Pass, Texas. And I did my first call for 2 years as a pastor in suburban San Antonio. And during a congregational meeting, the council president of that suburban San Antonio congregation told the most horrible racist joke I could imagine. And afterwards, I confronted him about it and said, this is not part of our life together. We're about welcome and inclusion. And he said, well, it's not racist. It's just about Mexicans. A couple months later, I was approached by our Synod staff who kind of called out of the blue and just said, Paul, we'd like you to interview in Eagle Pass. And I said, where's that? And for the past 5.5 years, I have been blessed and privileged to serve in Eagle Pass, Texas, a community that is about 97% Latinx, and I am the only Anglo person in the congregation I serve. I am in a culture that is not my native culture. I am in a language that is not my native tongue. But God is a God without boundaries, and so we celebrate life together. And I had seen these memes of, you might be Lutheran if you eat lutefisk or lefse. My great-grandparents were Norwegian Lutherans in Minnesota. I know that culture. And my first Christmas in Eagle Pass, some people from the congregation said, we want you to make Iowa food. Because cross-cultural learning goes both ways. And so I found the cookbook from my mom's home congregation, Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Wadena, Minnesota. And we made lefse together. And for these Mexican women who have spent years upon years with a comal, a comal and a lefse iron are almost the same thing. And so we had a very exciting cross-cultural experience, and in Spanish we called the lefse pan noruego, Norwegian bread. As pastor, I try to practice don't ask, don't tell in terms of immigration status, because it doesn't matter. We are all citizens of the kingdom of heaven. And todos somos mojados. We are all wet. We don't deserve God's love, but God gives us amnesty. And so we are welcomed and loved no matter what papers we have. The only time I do ask about people's immigration status is in premarital conversation, because if someone has applied for residency and gets married, they have to start the whole process over. Not everyone in my congregation can travel to Synod Assembly because we have to go through a border checkpoint in order to get out of Eagle Pass. If I go through the checkpoint by myself, the agent just says, "U.S. citizen? Yep, have a nice day." It's different when people who don't look like me go through that. There is racial profiling, there is injustice. Once I went through the checkpoint and the agent asked, "What were you doing in Eagle Pass?" I said, "I live there." He said, "You live in Eagle Pass? What do you do?" "I'm a Lutheran pastor." "Well, shouldn't you be in Minnesota or Wisconsin?" I said, "We're everywhere." And so one of the Mexican and Mexican-American traditions that my congregation loves to celebrate is the Posada, in which we reenact Mary and Joseph on their journey to Bethlehem, looking for lodging, looking for welcome. And so when we celebrate the Posada, we generally go from house to house singing a Posada song, and then we don't get welcomed. And then finally we come to the church and we sing Entren Santos Peregrinos, welcome holy pilgrims. And so as I think of the Posada, it's a way for us to recognize and remember all those who are on a journey, all those who are seeking welcome, who are seeking acceptance and hospitality. And it's a chance for us to remember that Jesus is in the midst of those who suffer. Jesus is in the midst of those who travel. I had the privilege a couple of weeks ago of visiting with a family who was staying at San Lucas. We're not officially a shelter, but sometimes as Christians we just show hospitality. But these two 15-year-old boys were showing me on Google Maps where they hid waiting for the coyotes to smuggle them across the river. Holy ground, indeed. And so I also think of the countless host of unnamed pilgrims whose names I do not know, but whose clothes are left on the shores of El Rio Bravo in downtown Eagle Pass, as they've left their wet clothes behind, seeking a new life, seeking new opportunity. And so I think of all of those stories of migration, of moving from place to place, as we celebrate Christmas, as we celebrate Christ incarnate in this world, as we celebrate Jesus as the Word made flesh. And so today's experience is going to be very experiential. We're going to have some fun with a piñata, but before that we're going to sing. And so we're going to sing the Posada song, and traditionally one part is sung by those on the inside and one part by those on the outside, but I think we can all sing all the parts together, because sometimes we're insiders and sometimes we're outsiders. And so we recognize that we play all of those roles. And so let's sing the Posada. Diosas Maria, entre peregrinos, no los conocía. Amen. We're not going to sing the last part because that's a different tune that didn't get printed in the hymnal or in the worship sheet. But we celebrate the welcome of the holy pilgrims, Entre Santos Peregrinos.
I actually have an idea. It's kind of early. Could we maybe teach them? What? Do we have time, maybe? Hold on. 12. Seriously, it's a random idea I had right now. Over here. Do we have time maybe to teach them the last part? I just feel kind of bad.
I have trouble singing it without seeing the notes in front of me because I don't always know where the syllables are.
Who knows Entre Peregrinos?
The second part. I don't know it.
Sarah, you clearly knew it last night. No, seriously, can you help teach us?
Santos peregrinos, peregrinos, reciban este rincón, que aunque es pobre la morada, hoy estoy dando el corazón. Entre santos peregrinos, peregrinos, reciban este rincón, que aunque es pobre la morada, hoy es la del corazón. Amen. When the Lutheran magazine wrote an article about how different congregations celebrate Christmas, a couple years ago, the congregation I serve was profiled, and we had a picture of our giant Mary and Joseph statue as we go from house to house. And I had mentioned to the reporter that we go back to the church and have a big party with tamales, and we drink champorado, which is a Mexican drink with abuelita, the Mexican chocolate, and cinnamon. But I think that the reporter didn't quite hear what I was saying and just went back later and Googled Mexican drink, because it said in the Lutheran that we go back to the church and eat tamales and drink horchata, which is a very cool, refreshing summertime drink that we wouldn't be drinking in the cold of winter. But, and so I did not live that down in my congregation, because they thought, but part of the party is breaking a piñata. And the traditional Mexican piñata usually has 7 cones to represent the 7 deadly sins. And as we bat at the piñata, we're recognizing our participation in the destruction and breaking down the sin in the world. And we recognize that we participate in Christ's death and resurrection. And we're created co-creators. And we're going to do something fun and creative. Instead of thinking of just the 7 deadly sins, today we are going to be invited to think of all the sins and oppressions and injustices in our world and our lives that need to be broken down. And so Pastor Laura is going to start passing out some sticky notes, and I invite you to share the sticky notes. There's 4 per each one, so you have to find 3 friends. And so I invite you to write some sort of injustice or oppression that needs to be broken down. And we will place those sticky notes on the piñatas as we process out to the courtyard. So this is an outdoor participatory activity today, as we also celebrate God's beautiful creation outside. And so there are 2 piñatas at the exits. And so this is going to be holy chaos. And let's just own that it's logistically confusing, but it will be a lot of fun. And so we will start, and you can, if you choose not to go out, if you're unable to go outside, you can see the breaking of the piñata from the windows. It's at that tree right back there. And I was very careful to put a sign that said piñata, because I hung the rope from the tree and I thought, oh no, a rope hanging from a tree, that's really, really bad. And so it is for a piñata, and so we're in the process of passing out these sticky notes. Does everyone have them, or are we still in the process? And so can start to pass out some markers. Or do you have things with which to write? Pens? Okay. All right. And so I invite you to, as you write, maybe share just with a partner, someone near you, what you're writing. We're not going to have the time or the logistics to do large group sharing, but I just envision this whole piñata covered with all the sins and oppressions of the world. All right, I invite you to start writing, and we'll start to gather out in the courtyard. Thank you.